Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on procurement as sustainability powerhouse. My name is Ganesh Negi, and I'm Sustainable Procurement Director at Schneider Electric, and I'll be moderating this exciting conversation today. As we gather here, the world is facing unprecedented sustainability challenges. Climate change, biodiversity loss, social inequality, and human rights abuses are just few of the pressing issues that require immediate attention. But here's the good news: procurement can be a game changer. As the gatekeepers of the organizational spending, procurement professionals have the power to drive sustainability practices across the entire value chain. With trillions of dollars in procurement spent annually, companies have a significant opportunity to influence the supplier behavior, drive innovation, and promote sustainable development. But procurement's role in sustainability goes beyond just the spend. It's about creating a ripple effect that inspires positive change throughout the organization, the value chain, and the broader community. But you know what? Luckily, you don't have to take my word for it. I have the unique privilege and honor to navigate the conversation with an esteemed panel of senior procurement leaders from two of the global multinational corporations, Schneider Electric and Eaton Corporation. And they will be sharing the unique perspective of how they are leveraging the special position of procurement function in augmenting sustainability within their ecosystem. I'm extremely happy to introduce my fellow panelists, Joe McLean, Supplier Diversity and Sustainability Director at Eaton Corporation, and Christoph Kikampur, Vice President and Head of Sustainable Procurement at Schneider Electric. Hello, Joe, Christoph. Thank you for joining us today in this discussion. But
Happy to be here. Yeah.
before we deep dive into the panel, I'm super excited to announce a special feature of today's event. We have the privilege of hearing from the chief procurement officers of the two organizations, and they will share their insights on why they think procurement is a sustainability powerhouse. Please join me in welcoming Salim Samsar, the Chief Procurement Officer of Eaton Corporation, and Art Verboon, the Chief Procurement Officer of Schneider Electric. Salim and Art have recorded a special message for us today, and these remarks will set the stage for our panel discussion and provide valuable perspective on the critical role procurement plays in driving sustainability. We'll be showing these pre recorded speeches shortly, followed by our panel discussion with Joe and Christoph. And our panel will explore topics such as the business case for sustainable procurement, strategies for engaging suppliers, and much more. Now, throughout this discussion, we encourage you to participate, ask questions, share your own experiences, and raise any queries that you have from the leaders in the panel. Your input will enrich our conversation and provide valuable insights for all. Now, let's get started. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the special keynote from our Chief Procurement Officers. Deirdre, if we can please request you to release the videos.
The world we operate in is continuously evolving, presenting us with challenges that extend far beyond traditional business models. It's essential for businesses today to shift from a narrow focus on financial impact to a broader assessment of their overall influence on the people and the planet. The World Economic Forum's 2024 Global Risk Report highlights that the most pressing risks for businesses now arise from environmental and societal factors. This aligns with our mission at Schneider Electric, where we have long been dedicated to driving sustainable impact. Our unique combination of electrical and automation technologies, coupled with our leadership in software, services and sustainability, enables us to rapidly accelerate sustainable impact. This commitment is at the heart of our company's mission and purpose. In procurement, we have a pivotal role to play in fostering sustainable impact. Every product we source relies on Earth's finite resources. According to the Global Footprint Network's calculations for Earth Overshoot Day, humanity is currently consuming nature's resources 1.7 times faster than our planet can regenerate. Imbalance will inevitably affect our ability to procure materials and goods in a reliable, resilient, and cost-effective manner. Additionally, procurement is responsible for managing our supplier network, which significantly contributes to our Scope 3 emissions. In fact, the carbon emissions associated with our purchased goods and services are 33 times greater than our own Scope 1 and 2 emissions. This unique position places procurement at the forefront of advancing our organization's sustainability ambitions. Our strategic business plans must be proactive and organically integrated, ensuring that sustainability is at the forefront of our people's minds and the minds of our suppliers.
As procurement professionals, we have a responsibility to lead the sustainability agenda. We need to leverage procurement's influence over the supply chain, from sourcing direct to indirect to delivering products through our logistics teams. By focusing on sustainability, we ensure that suppliers meet environmental and social standards, reducing our carbon footprint, and of course, promoting ethical practices. This approach benefits the environment and enhances our organization's reputation and long-term viability. And that is how we can leave our Earth in a better shape for future generations. We need to move beyond compliance when it comes to sustainability. This is not about meeting some requirement or checking a box. At Eaton, we've integrated sustainability in our procurement practices. To move beyond compliance, we established goals that are aligned with our organization's sustainability objective in procurement. We've incorporated sustainability criteria in the supplier selection and evaluation process. We aim to reduce waste, conserve energy, and of course, promote fair labor practices. That is embedded in our strategy and the execution plan. The strategy and the execution plan is cascaded throughout the organization, from top management to frontline employees. Of course, we need to balance sustainability objective with cost pressures and supply chain resiliency. Balancing these two, it's a common challenge for everyone. To address these pressures, we take what we call total cost of ownership approach. This approach allows us to include environmental and social impacts in the sourcing decision. By doing that, we can identify the most optimal solution that encompasses sustainability, quality, delivery, and cost. We monitor and report on sustainability performance for continuous improvement. We do that through objective, quantitative key performance indicators. And of course, we utilize partnerships with the Sustainable Procurement Pledge Organization to ensure that our procurement professionals are committed to sustainability by encouraging everyone on our global team to sign the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. We need to build a lasting culture of sustainable procurement, integrating sustainability and procurement practices across all the teams. Our policies, our procedures requires a comprehensive approach. Our approach is first based on our vision to improve the quality of life and the environment through the use of power management technologies and services. And our global procurement team is focused on our 4 key strategic priorities. They are, number 1, invest in our people, recruit, develop, and retain top talent. Number 2 is align and satisfy business and functional partners. We pursue that goal through an enterprise lens that includes responsible sourcing. The third one is enhancing supplier relationship. We need to do that by focusing on building strategic partnership that are mutually beneficial. And finally, achieving flawless execution. We need to make sure that our strategy and vision is executed successfully through a rigorous action plan and tracking mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Ard and Salim, for sharing your valuable insights, and you definitely set the vision from the top. Now, let's transition to our panel discussion and see how some of the key tenets highlighted by our CPOs are integrated within the procurement function within their respective companies. And I'll start with you first, Joe. You operate a global supply chain, and one of the key characteristics of a powerhouse is to electrify and charge everyone. Now, with suppliers coming from all parts of the world, it's important to have a customized strategy and not a one size fits all. So, in that respect, how does Eaton assess the sustainability maturity of your suppliers? And what criteria are used in this assessment? And if I may add a follow up question to that, what steps are taken to support suppliers in improving their sustainability practices and moving up the maturity levels?
Sure. No, good question, Kanesh. And before I get started, let me just say I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel with my esteemed colleagues here from Schneider. Always a pleasure to be a part of the World Sustainable Procurement Day. So kudos to the team for the planning and the execution of this event, which I always find invigorating, exciting. You know, I know it's challenging. My colleagues here in different time zones are probably struggling a little bit more than I am because they're in a different time zone, so it's later in the day. But to get to your question, first of all, how do we assess our suppliers? So, yeah, Eaton's a global manufacturing, intelligent power management company. And so we do business in 170 countries. We have, you know, in some respects, 50,000 suppliers, depending on the way you classify them as active or not. And so that complexity that you're talking about, condition, how do we evaluate or assess our suppliers? You know, several years ago, I've been in supply diversity and sustainability for the past year and a half. Prior to me joining this group, there was a gentleman from our Center for Sustainability named Naveen Baparla, who did some industry benchmarks against what sustainability assessments look like. And he kind of took the best from all of the evaluations that he was able to conduct, and we created our customized sustainability assessment that we've deployed to right now the top 80% of our spend across the globe. And so that assessment was developed not because we don't believe in other assessments. I know there's some really good industry best practices out there, and I won't name them, but I'm sure there's some of those individuals on this call. But what we were looking for was really a way to calibrate the information that we were hearing from our suppliers, right? So we had some suppliers who were giving us their annual sustainability report, some suppliers who were telling us about some, you know, game-changing ideas and breakthrough technology that they were working on. But when you really look across the board, you can hear those different flashes of brilliance, or even those flashes of concerns, and you could tend to over toggle in one way or the other in terms of how that supplier is performing. And so the assessment that we develop really helps us calibrate and synthesize the information that we're getting from our suppliers across several topics. And it starts as simple as, have you affirmed Eaton Supplier Code of Conduct? And you know, for every response, there's a evaluation that we conduct, and each question is scored. And so you get a cumulative score. And it goes from supplier code of conduct all the way up to, you know, do you have validated greenhouse gas targets, right? And so, you know, there are suppliers who are, to your point, they're kind of all over the spectrum in terms of their maturity. So our intent was to give them some criteria that we use to kind of evaluate them based on the topics that we were evaluating, and really to generate what we would call our maturity level for that supplier. So your follow-up question was really, what are we doing with that data, right? Mm-hmm. And I've taken these assessments, I'm sure you all have, and And I want to make sure that my time is well spent. I don't like investing time, effort, and energy for anything that's not going to go anywhere. Well, the thing that I'm really happy about, in this year and a half with being with this team, our assessment gives each supplier a 10-page kind of customized report as soon as they're finished taking the evaluation. In that report, we break down these 6 topics that they're evaluated on, and we give them our assessment for each topic. But we don't stop there. We go ahead and give them what we would recommend in terms of next steps based on where they were assessed. But in addition to that, we also provide them with some resources. So it's the assessment, it's the recommendation, and then there's some resources to couple with that. And that's kind of where we are in terms of the first phase of this deployment of our assessment. As we get more data from our top suppliers, we're looking into developing and customizing specific, training that will get right at the heart of environmental, social, and governance for specific issues that we're seeing in our maturity assessment. Yeah.
Thanks, Shu. It sounds like an extensive exercise and reaching out to the entire supply base, kind of doing the benchmarking, and then reaching out to them in a really customized manner to raise their standards rather than taking something which is off the shelf, kind of one size fits all, which is, let's say, not always extremely effective given the specific nuances that we may face.
Yeah.
Christoph, if I may come to you, you also have a rather unique system of onboarding suppliers and a comprehensive approach to sustainability, which is a well balanced portfolio. And Schneider Electric is also leading some of the initiatives at massive scale. Can you give us a little bit of insight on what is it? How do you go about doing it?
Yes, Kanishka. Well, I'll try. But before that, I want to echo Joe. So extremely happy to be in this panel with all of you. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, Kanish, for you to be attending so late. So yes, indeed, we have a sustainable procurement strategy which correlates the overall impact that our supplier operation may have on the society and the environment. So factoring this, we create a well-balanced portfolio of intervention that address decarbonization, resources and circularity, and human rights as key thematics area. Our uniqueness resides in balancing E, S, and G. In each of the thematics, we also have different levels. We have the foundational programs and transformational programs. And the guiding principle for all this is really collaboration, working hand in hand with our suppliers to achieve and accelerate their sustainable agenda. And the intention, as you mentioned, is really to engage supplier on a massive scale to create a huge multiplier effect. So, okay, lots of beautiful words, but to be concrete, let me illustrate this with our decarbonization program that we call internally the Zero Carbon Project. In this program that we launched back in 2021, we onboarded 1,000 suppliers, the most impacting suppliers globally, with the objective to reduce their operational emission by 50% by 2025. Yes, by the end of this year. So to deploy that, we've been designing a full support infrastructure for suppliers, trainings, tools, hand-holding, one-to-ones meeting, workshops, financial support as well that we've been implementing. So this is about decarbonization, but let me illustrate what I was saying with another example, focusing more on social and human rights this time. So we have been since before 2017, we have been auditing on-site more than 1,000 high-risk suppliers over the last 5 years. And for each of those auditing that takes 2 to 3 days, we identify in average about 12 to 13 non-conformity. The point is not to do the audit and identify the non-conformity. The point is to work hand in hand with the suppliers to solve those non-conformity. Another example would be, and here I'm moving really into the aspirational side, what we call the transformational programs. And this I can illustrate with the Decent Work program, where we engage all of our strategic suppliers with the goal to get them 100% decent work compliant by the end of 2025. Decent Work program, I have no time to go into the details, but goes really beyond the regulation, beyond the normative rules that some companies are applying. I'll give you some example. When we speak about wages in decent work, we're asking suppliers to have living wage policy. When we speak about forced labor, child labor, we're asking them to have a remediation plan in place. When we speak about diversity, we ask them to have a non-gender family care policy in place. We also have been measuring our overall ESG continuous performance through the program we call ISO 26000. We're using EcoVadis here, where we're not only assessing all of our strategic suppliers, but our goal is to drive year-over-year improvement. So for each of those initiatives, we do customized maturity assessment of the suppliers and create a massive capacity building, to meet the supplier at the level where they are. I illustrate that briefly with the Zero Carbon project. Now, and to conclude, what is key in each of those programs is to make the first step achievable for your suppliers. You don't have to block them. You don't have to show them a huge step to go. How do we do that? For example, if I'm taking the Zero Carbon project, we took a commitment to be at 50% by the end of this year. We did not impose that commitment to the suppliers. We asked them first to come up with their own target. Then, of course, we work with them to improve, to build confidence that they can go higher. And in the Decent Work program, for example, in the living wage pillar, we're asking them as a first step to have a living wage policy that they publish and have available, that we review, of course, with them and assess if it's the right policy or not. So those are some examples that I wanted to bring on the table to answer your question.
Wow, and this is great and really insightful. But it also kind of brings another extremely important point to the fore. Reaching out to the suppliers is one step, but we cannot directly reach to the suppliers. We have to take the procurement organization through it. And the procurement organizations, and I'm talking about both of you large multinational corporations, it's not a small centralized department. Rather, you have globally distributed massive procurement organizations who are spread across the different BUs and geographies and different planes. And and maybe Joe, if I come to you, we heard Salim mention about sustainability as the total cost of ownership. And can you share a little bit with our audience? How does Eaton ensure that in your category strategies, in your procurement organizations, the sustainability aspect is actually getting integrated? When we talk about, or when you mention about the maturity assessments or the sustainability risk assessment, how are these part of the overall approach, and what are the key components of your category strategy, and how do they correlate with sustainability?
Yeah. No, good question. I do think Celine made some very good points. And one of the things I kind of want to step into before I touch on category strategy alignment is, Celine's first key priority is to invest in our people. If you saw that,
Right.
it's important. And I think, for people who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I'm not new in this business. I've been with Eaton. I just celebrated 32 years with this company.
Wow.
And over my extended career, I've seen a significant amount of transformative change happen inside of this company. And I believe in my heart that our company's better days are still in front of us, as our new CEO says. So what I really lean on and depend on when it comes down to category strategy alignment is more than that. It actually starts with our procurement professionals. And honestly, I'm biased here, and so you guys at Schneider have to forgive me. But I believe we have some of the best procurement professionals in the world. And I'm not shy about saying that, and they know that, right? I think we have some of the most talented, most educated, passionate people when they're given a challenge, they accept the challenge, they overcome any obstacle. And again, we're in another phase of maturation right now. I can remember in the early days of supply chain at Eaton when we were decentralized and everyone in their own separate business in Eaton had their own supply chain. But you know, our leadership then took us from being a decentralized team to a centralized team, and we conquered that mountain. I see sustainability as the next mountain that we need to conquer. I've seen us do this in our operations side. We're heavily invested now in what we call the Eaton Business System, which is built off of Lean Six Sigma, which I'm sure you all as well. And I just see this is the next area of transformation for our company. So how does it get to category strategy? Well, for me, again, when I step back and I look at some of these challenges we talked about that no one thought we could ever accomplish. And I remember cost out. Everybody was thinking, 3 to 5% cost out year over year we're never going to make it. Today we have processes, we have systems, we have tools, we have the engagement of people, and we're hitting our cost out objectives. We started talking about, as a result of COVID, and even before COVID, we started talking about supply chain resiliency. And today, we can measure how resilient each category is as it relates to redundant supply chains, duplication and other types of resiliency approaches. So category strategy for me is simply this. We are trying really to integrate sustainability into the existing ecosystem. We're just really trying to make it a part of the conversation, just like supply risk, just like our geographic, whether we have some challenges from a logistics standpoint, nearshoring, or whatever the challenges are that are embedded in each one of these categories. We're really trying to leverage that and harness that energy that already exists inside of our supply chain to embed sustainability. But first and foremost is really getting the engagement of our supply chain professionals, our procurement professionals. And then it's really after our procurement professionals are engaged, our suppliers need to be engaged. Salim touched on how we get our procurement professionals engaged is we ask everybody to sign the pledge, right? So again, kudos to SPP for that. And our suppliers, really, we want them to respond to our campaigns, whether that's the maturity assessment, conflict minerals, or anything else. And then finally, when we have those two components, category strategy becomes a natural output of those two inputs if you really do that correctly.
Wonderful. And Joe, I think what you are alluding is making sustainability the second nature of procurement, or just the nature of procurement. As we talk about quality, we talk about sustainability. It's just one of the topics that procurement has to address.
That's exactly
Fascinating.
right.
Fascinating. And Christoph, if I may ask, how do you do it in Schneider Electric? Ard mentioned in his keynote that sustainability is organically embedded in your way of procurement and the way how the procurement function is designed at Schneider Electric. Can you elaborate for our audience what does that mean, and how does an organically embedded sustainability in the procurement function or governance look like?
Yeah, let me try to explain that. But before that, I am in violent agreement with you, Joe. We have the best professional in sustainability in your team. So I fully align with you. Now, more seriously, coming back to the question, indeed, sustainability in Schneider Electric has been, as Art was saying, organically embedded into the organization and into the action plan. And we started more than 13 years ago by simply measuring the overall performance, ESG performance, of course, of our suppliers. And we quickly expanded that, as I was alluding earlier, to auditing, removing ESG risk, and more importantly, to the transformational program covering decarbonization, green materials, sustainable packaging, decent work, social excellence, and I can continue to name those. So to me, it's really crucial and critical to embark your procurement individual by not only explaining the what and the how, but mainly the why. It needs to be an inspiration. Hello?
Yep, we hear you, Christoph. We hear you.
I don't see you anymore, so the screen, my
but
screen
carry
is
on.
dead.
Carry on. We hear you perfectly
So
well.
to to me, what is very critical is that you have to explain the not only the what and the how, but really the why. As I was saying, it needs to be an inspiration, not just a mandate. And you need to have a clear link as well with the business. Since the very beginning, we started adding sustainability in our procurement KPIs and scorecard, not only taking commitments, but also keeping ourselves accountable on achieving them, on achieving those objectives that we set to ourselves. Each procurement group in Schneider Electric, being regions, being categories, has sustainable procurement scorecard. But most important to me is really how we position sustainability in our daily work and the associated governments to monitor this performance. So in Schneider Electric, we position it at the core of the procurement mission. We have a pyramid with the customer on top. So everything we're doing in procurement is to support the customer. And this is sustained by top line growth, bottom line impact, and sustainability, which means that programs like decarbonization, like circularity, like decent work are at the same level as quality, as productivity, as delivery. And we also need to put in place a very solid governance. So we have monthly reviews on sustainability. Whenever we have a scorecard review, which is monthly as well, we start with sustainability. We have been implementing something very simple, but it's to make sure that any quarterly business review or executive business review that we have with suppliers, we start with sustainability. I'm even pushing the people to include that into the negotiation meetings. So when they have a negotiation meeting, start with sustainability, show that it is critical for us. In Schneider Electric, it's also part of our annual performance plans, and it's also part of our annual bonus. The 4 transformational program I was explaining earlier are basically including everybody bonus scheme at the end of the year. Not only, by the way, if you're in procurement, but also if you're in other functions, finance, HR, R&D, and so on. So to conclude on this part, I want to say that sustainability, and I may shock people, is not anymore a procurement responsibility. It has really become our duty. We in procurement, through our daily decision, can make a big impact in the world we live in. And I will not quote Spider-Man, but you get the picture. You know, with great power comes big responsibility. But we procurement people, we can really all be sustainability superhero.
Thank you, Christoph. And in fact, both of the organizations, what you share is actually reflecting quite a comprehensive approach. And without doubt, both of your companies are leading from the front. Now, this may be my last question coming to you, Joe. How does Eaton plan to leverage the procurement organization to achieve your 2030 sustainability objectives, the goals, and what are your plans beyond that time frame?
Yeah, good question. So I love some of the stuff that Christoph said. So look, sustainability has moved outside of the walls of one department or function. It becomes the organization's responsibility. You heard Celine talk about, our company's vision is to improve the quality of life and the environment through the use of our power management technologies and services. So I say internally all the time, we don't have the luxury of not pressing forward in sustainability, right? If that's our vision, if we've made that bold of a statement in terms of our intent to improve the quality of life, we cannot rest at compliance, right? And again, you heard Celine say that, it's not about checking a box. It's not about, getting the compliance score that appeases your customers or your stakeholders. It's really about finding out what good you can do. And so, I think, where we are today in our maturity from a supply chain standpoint, as it relates to our 2030 goals, Kanesh, to answer your question, we're on track. I mean, we're moving the needle in the right direction. I don't think there's any major concerns around our environmental or our social responsibilities from a supply chain standpoint. And again, I tip my hat to all the supply chain professionals around Eaton that have helped us move in that direction. It's not a one-man show here. It's truly me getting out of the way so that those people can show off their brilliance, right? So we're on track for 2030. What I want to talk about, and really what I'm challenging our organization is, just being good is not ever where we've rested, right? We've never said, let's just figure out what good enough looks like. And today, I think we have a huge opportunity to look past 2030 and start to really seriously have conversations around how can we really support a circular economy? What can we do to have a positive impact on biodiversity and get past the emissions conversation in general, or the social conversations? And yes, we want all of our suppliers to affirm our supplier code of conduct. But more than that, we want our suppliers to do good for the environment. We want our suppliers to do right by their employees. Really, we want to make sure that, for me personally, my goal is that the bus is going faster than I can drive it, right? I think every individual that leads a category in Eaton has, their own unique opportunities as well as risks that are in front of them. But I also think that they're more equipped than I ever will be in terms of understanding their specific category and some of the unique opportunities that come along with that in terms of improvement. And so my goal, for our organization is to let us move at the speed of the individuals as opposed to the speed of just, the organization in terms of a compliance standpoint.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Joe. And I would like to conclude the panel with you, Christoph. Can you share how are you upping the ambition of sustainable procurement, going beyond your 2025 targets and several other pioneering initiatives that you've been implementing for the past 5 years? Like, will there be a chapter 2 of those initiatives, or they will just conclude now? Or if I take the example of your very famous zero carbon project, you reached out to 1,000. Now, do you plan to reach to 10,000 suppliers in the next phase, or how does that look like?
Well, it may not be 10,000 suppliers, but what I can tell you is that it's going to be much more than 10,000 components for sure. The whole strategy of the new decarbonization program we are implementing, designing now, it's really moving from supplier decarbonization to supply decarbonization. So from moving from corporate carbon footprint to product carbon footprint. We are implementing that as we speak. We've been working over the last 12 months on this, and we're going to be launching that in the near future by the end of the year. Same goes on the decent work program. So it's not because we will reach the end of 2025 that we will just stop and go to something else. No, we're going to continue to move on decent work. And basically the strategy here, it's going from awareness and policies to truly implementation and focusing on what is most material for our supply base, where we really can make a difference. Same on the resources and circularity. Today we have a green material program that we have been focusing on steel, aluminium, and thermoplastic. We will be evolving this into a much more ambitious program, which we may call responsible material, combining environmental elements and, so not or, and social and human rights criteria for each of the suppliers, and we will be increasing much more as well the coverage. So we need to be shifting the discussion from cost of sustainability to value of sustainability to our customers. So also in our approach, having a much more product-focused approach that we can sell sustainability to our customer. The objective is really to accelerate our ambition on sustainability towards suppliers while continuing to support them, but making sure at the same time that sustainability is embedded in all of our decision-making process. I am convinced that this is key. And as I was mentioning earlier, we need to link that with business. So we need to realize that we in procurement have probably, and this is true for most of the companies, the biggest impact and influence on corporation sustainability, the biggest impact on corporation environmental and social footprint. And as to conclude, as a reminder, the UN SDG are due by 2030. The clock is ticking, and procurement is a key enabler on making those happening.
Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Christoph, for sharing the insights. Also, thanks to Ard and Salim for taking time out and sharing the keynote and setting the vision and letting our audience as well know how does the CPO view sustainability within the procurement domain. Now we are on top of the hour, but there are some extremely interesting questions which I thought it'll be fascinating to hear your views about. I'll mention them, and either of you, you can choose to comment upon it. So, the first one is definitely, and how could we have missed it? Use of artificial intelligence or Gen AI for the variety of supplier assessments and the other kinds of evaluations that we do. How do you look at the artificial intelligence for doing the assessments and evaluations and screening, and are you using it right now, or do you plan to do it in the future?
Yeah.
It's an open question.
Christoph, I'll let you go first if you like.
So first of all, I prefer to call AI augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And the whole spirit is really in the word I was mentioning. Today we are in the different programs I was mentioning. We are testing some AI augmented intelligence in, for example, decarbonization, working with some companies and startup to help assessing an overall carbon footprint on with a very small description as an example. Now, the accuracy of it is not great, but what is great is that we know what are the biggest contributor. So you can start working with your suppliers while you're improving the accuracy of the product carbon footprint. You can start working on decarbonizing, because what is most important is not to measure. I think we all said that today. It's really to act and for decarbonization to decrease the carbon emission. But same into the decent work when we launched those questionnaires, an example. Today we have, for example, already AI used into contract management, identifying the terms and so on. So we're trying to use the same technology to assess if a policy is meeting the requirements we need, and to highlight where we should be putting, again, in the augmented intelligence spirit, where we should put our human eyes on it to verify that it's okay. So to me, it is, and I know there is big debate, AI versus sustainability. I'm truly convinced it is a tool to help us accelerate our sustainability agenda.
Yep. Yeah, no, I would just echo some of those points that Christoph made. Look, AI is it's an enabler, right? And so the question specifically how we're using it to support our supplier assessments, I wouldn't say it's really artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, as Christoph said, but we do use power automation in terms of creating our and delivering our maturity assessments. The one thing for me, when you think about artificial intelligence, AI, however you want to put it, the goal is to give us efficiency that we otherwise wouldn't enjoy, right? And for me, it's always about two different things, no matter which function you're in. It's about the analysis and it's about the reporting, right? And for me, again, I go back to my world class procurement professionals that, I think they're the best in the world. I don't want them spending their time, evaluating spreadsheets. I don't want them spending their time building reports. I really want them focused on the actions. And the one thing that Salim has brought to our organization is he's got a death grip on action trackers, right? And so I think the more we enable our team to focus on the actions and to get from behind the computer screen doing the analysis, the better off we're going to be. And no matter if that's assessments, risk analysis, for us, we are a complex organization, I mentioned before. And so just simply understanding which of our products drive the most revenue so that we know where we need to focus our effort. We've leveraged AI recently to get visibility into things that we've never had visibility. So, when you're trying to chase everything, like everything's the most important, you're losing on the things that are really important, right? So,
Yes.
artificial intelligence gives us some advantages in terms of efficiency.
Brilliant.
Fully aligned.
Brilliant. There is also uh, an additional question which has come, and it's kind of looking at the contemporary situation wherein there is sort of a confusion on the direction in which the whole discourse of sustainability is going to take. Is it going to take a pause? Is it going to go aggressively, or is there going to be a rollback? So how do you see sustainability and the focus on sustainability that the corporations are giving in these uncertain times, when we probably are getting mixed signals from different directions?
I may start here. I would say, in short, the business case didn't change. So whatever changes or impact in geopolitical changes in government directions, ups and downs like this is not impacting the vision long term, is not impacting what we need to do. And I'm actually extremely happy to see that it also creates some wake-up calls, I would say, with some of the people, because they say, oops, the government is not helping me anymore. We need to take that in charge now. So I often hear when we speak about that, about headwinds, we have a lot of headwinds. Honestly, we never wait for governments and regulation to drive sustainability. So I would not say it's headwinds. It's probably a little bit less of tailwind that we will have. But again, business case is not changing, direction is not changing, the vision is not changing. So yes, it may be in some part of the world a little bit more difficult, but it's not a reason. It's actually a reason to accelerate what we're doing in the private sector.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, those of us who are, looking at the data that's driving the focus on sustainability, to Christophe's point, the business case has not changed, right? I think it's easy to, make anything political, and I'm not opposed to politics. I think people have a right to voice their opinion, and you should be passionate about the things that you believe. But the thing that keeps me honest every day is I'm constantly thinking about my children's children's children, right? And we have one earth. You can be as political as you want to today. At the end of the day, there's only one earth, right? There's no amount of politicking that's gonna turn around what we're dealing with in terms of how we're treating our natural resources, right? How we're treating the environment, how we're treating people. And so it will, for those people who understand the severity of our situation, it will never take a second seat. I always reflect when we have this type of debate or conversation. I always reflect on COVID, and I distinctly remember the first day that it became real to me. I was watching a National Basketball Association game, and the game was getting ready to start, and the teams were still in the locker room, and the announcer said, "I don't think we're going to play a basketball game today because of this concern about COVID." And I remember them interviewing some of those professional basketball players, and the athletes said, "There's no way they're shutting down basketball." And so you think about a few months later, what the reality of for all of us is that it doesn't matter how much bigger you think you are than the situation.
Yeah.
At some point, there's a burning platform that will be bigger than any political conversation, that's going to drive us to make some different decisions, to take some different actions to protect national resources and people at the end of the day.
That's a very, very, very poignant reminder
Yeah.
of the stark reality that we live in. I'm mindful of the time. We've just got under 2 minutes. There are a few questions. This one maybe very briefly, as at an approach level, if you can comment upon, how do you scope the suppliers for the different initiatives? Now, you don't ask every supplier to be part of every initiative. What kind of approach, what kind of correlation do you put in place before assigning specific suppliers for specific programs?
I will start if that's okay, Joe. So
Sure.
very simple, very pragmatic. You ask us to be short. So it's really on making the impact to the people and to the world, to the planet, the biggest. So this is how we scope suppliers. For example, for the zero carbon project, we've been taking the top 1,000 most emitting suppliers that we had back when we made the scoping, which was back in 2021. On the Decent Work program, we're focusing on the strategic suppliers, which means the suppliers with whom we have the biggest spend, they have the best performance, and the one with whom we want to grow the business, as an example. So basically, this is how we scope. Now I can take another example on the duty of vigilance or on-site audit. Here we're going to go to the suppliers that has the highest risk. Those are the ones that we're going to be auditing first, as an example. So really where we believe we can have the biggest impact by the action that we put in place.
No, and it's our approach is very similar. It's really a risk-based approach, and it starts at a category level, and you really have to do an evaluation across each category and determine which category has the highest risk for each one of those environmental, social, or governance kind of work streams. And we know, like our raw material suppliers drive our emissions higher than some of our, I'll say, professional services suppliers, right? And by the same note, though, our raw material suppliers are subject matter experts, and they know things that I'm probably never going to learn in terms of how to reduce emissions. And so I'm always really careful to say, we're coaching our suppliers. In a lot of ways, we're really just building that robust partnership that Salim talked about to get knowledge from them on their industry or their specific area that can help us drive improvement. Same thing. When I think about professional services, these are the people, when you talk about human trafficking and modern slavery, they know more about that space than a novice like myself will ever know. And so I think our biggest opportunity is to lean on the suppliers that are in the space and not rely on our own expertise. We know what we're doing when it comes down to building product. We have to trust our partners in the supply chain to give us their, support for those areas that we're not as up to speed as they are.
Christoph, Joe, it's absolutely fascinating to hear you both talk about and explain with the great passion and insights and details how you lead sustainability within the procurement organization. And we can simply go on and on and on, but we are nice people. We're not gonna make life difficult for our SPP colleagues because they've got another session lined up. So thank you both for this enriching exchange. The magnitude of your initiatives are truly magnificent, and the scale is unparalleled. And I'm extremely confident, and I can say that without any hesitation, to make a claim that the extensive multiplier effect that your procurement organizations have, it truly makes them a sustainability powerhouse. Joe, Christoph, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Ganesh. And it was a pleasure, Joe, to be on this panel with you.
Absolutely. Totally enjoyed it. Ganesh, I'm impressed with your stamina, sir. Get some rest.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, we may not have met yet. My name is Emily and I work with the Sustainable Procurement Pledge on everything that is content. In other words, I am working to make sure that you, our community, have access to the right insights, tools and resources to make sustainable procurement the default, wherever you may be on your journey. And I am so excited about today. It's incredible to see so many procurement professionals from around the world come together for WSPD 2025, because this is exactly what it's all about: learning, sharing, and driving action together. I've had the privilege of working with procurement teams across industries, across the world, and one thing is clear to me. It's that this community is incredibly powerful. And that is why I'm so proud to be part of the SPP, a movement for procurement by procurement. And WSPD is just the beginning. Take what you learned today, the insights, the connections, and let's keep the conversation going. Keep engaging with the SPP and this incredible community, and let's push for change.